What's happening, everyone? This is Matt on the Vinyl Head UK channel, and I've got another vinyl appreciation video for all of you guys. Now, we're gonna dip back into the dark world of the death metal scene today. Now, if you are a fan of the old school Swedish death metal sound, but tinged with a bit of a black metal sound, then I have a record just for you. It's a record that I picked up pretty recently. It came this last weekend, but it's one that has already got a lot of plays. And you know what? I reckon it's one of my favorite records that I now own. The songs are amazing. The sound is amazing. It's absolutely blistering. And let me show you. It's the 5th studio album by Bloodbath. The arrow of Satan is drawn. Let me show you the back there. So this is the 5th album by Bloodbath. It was released in 2018. It is a 2018 pressing. It was put out by Peaceville. And it's the second Bloodbath record to feature Nick Holmes on vocals. So, Bloodbath. I really like Akerfeldt. I'm a big fan of Opeth, and I loved his vocal work with Bloodbath as well. I was lucky enough to see Bloodbath only the once, and that was with Akerfeldt. And that was back, I think it was Bloodstock 2010, I'm going to say. And it was an amazing afternoon. We had Gojira, followed by Bloodbath, followed by Cannibal Corpse. I'm pretty sure that is how it went. And then we randomly had Twisted Sister on after. But Gojira, Bloodbath, Cannibal Corpse. What a 1, 2, 3. That was insane. And that was with Akerfeldt. Now, when Akerfeldt left Bloodbath, I kind of lost track a little bit because I really liked his stuff. I find that Akerfeldt has steered away from the sort of death metal vocals and the death metal sound. If you listen to Opeth, they once were I guess you could probably call a technical death metal band from the Swedish scene. They are now more of a progressive metal band, and you don't really hear those death vocals anymore. So, which is fair enough why he's come away from Bloodbath, because that is purely what it is. Now, when Nick Holmes was announced, I was a little skeptical, which I think a lot of people were. I like Paradise Lost. I'm not a massive fan. I do like my Doom. You can blame Black Sabbath for that. But I've never been huge on Paradise Lost. And I kind of wondered whether he could pull it off coming into sort of an old school death metal sound straight out of the Swedish scene. So I didn't really listen to what they were putting out of him. I was dipping back into Bloodbath. I was listening to the older stuff. The live Wacken show, the Bloodbath DVD, Bloodstock DVD. And then, you know what, I thought, I'd give it a bit of a chance. I put it on the streaming sites. I listened to this album on Apple, and I was kind of blown away by it. And I was like, you know what, this is actually really good. And Nick Holmes is doing such a great job. I really liked his vocals. So I knew that it was an album I had to go and pick up on vinyl. And I'm really, really glad that I did. As I say, it is a death metal record. It's an old school death metal record. If you like Entombed, if you like Dismember, you're gonna like this. It has that guitar tone that you would find on records by those two bands. It's a slightly more modern production, I think, on this one. But also, it's got that black metal sound to it. Something that you haven't really heard so much in Bloodbath previously. But there are tracks on here which do sound like straight from the Black Death playbook. You know, it's very interesting to hear the progression on the sound and how the band have gone off on a slightly different direction. Don't get me wrong, like I say, there's those old school riffs and the groove. There is some really groovy Bloodbath tracks that they've put out on previous stuff, and there is still some groove on this record. But we'll come on to a little bit more about the sound later. Let me show you it. I always want to show the artwork. I think this one is worth showing off to you guys. So let me hold that up there. So it's a really interesting piece of artwork. It is essentially an oil painting. We have the black strip down the side here with the Bloodbath logo in that typical sort of black metal, death metal font, which is like impossible to read and tell who the band actually is. We have the arrow of Satan is drawn. We have this quite cool logo down the bottom with the initials to the album title. But then I'm going to hold it a little bit closer so you can really get a feel for that. It is an oil painting. And it is of these two guys in bed, sleeping or dead, who knows. The cross up on the wall there. And then we have this cot down the front, which is swarming with flies. Flip it over, so we have some curtains with those flies on again, and then we have the picture of the band looking typically gory and evil. If you've seen them live, you'll know what I mean. And then, of course, Nick Holmes, complete with shovel, looking very zombified, but in a very nice suit at the same time. Very interesting, I think. But I really like it. I think it's very interesting artwork. It is a gatefold as well, so I'm going to have to hold it back a little bit for you to see. But a really cool picture of a band, again, in typical Bloodbath fashion. Again, Nick Holmes looking very zombified at the front here, but I think it's a pretty cool picture of a band right there. You know what you're going to get when you open up a gatefold and you see a picture of a band looking like that. You know it's not going to be pretty pop music, right? And then inside, let me see if I can find it. Somewhere in here. There it is. We have something that I've never got with a record. And that is a catalogue of vinyl. The best type of catalogue. And it is a Peaceville, just a little catalogue of lots and lots of their vinyl. All their Peaceville artists. Akerfeldt, At the Gates, Anathema, Cradle of Filth, Autopsy, Behemoth, Candlemas, Dark Throne, Catatonia. Many, many bands. Pentagram, My Dying Bride, Mysticum. Sixth, I didn't realise Sixth were on Peaceville. Interesting. Vital Remains. A lot of bands. I think I could probably buy out most of this catalogue and be pretty happy. But nice little thing. I don't know whether I'd have to look at the Peaceville website and see what prices are like. But quite interesting. I like it. Makes me want to buy records. I think that's the aim of the catalogue. They're doing their job right there. And then let's pull out the inner sleeve. So our inner sleeve is our lyric sheet, both front and back there. It's got that cool image right there with the initials of the album title. And then, as I say, our lyrics are in a quite sort of old English font, which is kind of cool. Front and back there. And then, as per normal, black vinyl. This is quite an interesting one. So we don't actually have, unless I've completely missed it, which I don't think I have, we don't actually have it labelled as to which side is which. So I had to kind of guess. I guessed right, thankfully. But this black side here is side 1. And then we have, I guess, a grey kind of colour for side 2. Or side B. But yeah, interesting it doesn't label it. I have to remember it's a black side first, else I'll be diving into the record halfway through, and I wouldn't really want that. I think it's important, you know, another thing I really like about vinyl, in an age where we have streaming and it's a click of a button, you can change the track, or, you know, even a CD player, like if you listen to CDs in your car or anything still, if you're old school, you can skip a track just like that. You press a button and you can jump to track 8 or track 2 or whatever. With vinyl, what I really like is you get the full story of the album. You put the needle on the record and then you're going all the way through hopefully without skipping a track. And you get the flow of the album, especially with metal music, which I think tells a story as you go through, especially obviously if it's a concept album but just the lyrics and the flow of it and the dynamics of the track listing and, you know, as a story that it tells. And that's a big appeal with vinyl, I think. It's definitely one of the things I really like about it. So yeah, I didn't really want to be diving in halfway through on track 6 and then realizing I had to go back and change it and whatever. So, but yes, shall we look at track listing as we always do? Now remember, this isn't a review as such. I always try and stress that. This is just looking at the vinyl itself, the artwork, the tracks, why I like the tracks, how it sounds, everything like that. You can go and find reviews all over the internet. I don't want to be another review. I just want to talk about this whole thing as a package. But the track listing, let's come on to that. So, side A, side 1, we have Fleischmann kicking off. Bloodicide, Wayward Samaritan, Levitator, and Deader. That is side 1. Flip it over onto B, or side 2, we have March of the Crucifiers, Morbid Antichrist, Warhead Ritual, Only the Dead Survive, and then Chainsaw Lullaby closing off a record. So 10 tracks, 5 on each side. It's a good amount of time on each side, and it sounds magnificent. I'm going to talk a little bit about the tracks. I'll tell you actually as well who we have on this record. It is a bit of a super group with Bloodbath. Is a kind of a death metal, extreme metal super group, as you will. As I mentioned, Akerfeldt of Opeth was previously the vocalist. We now have Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost, vocalist from Paradise Lost, coming in. This is his second record with Bloodbath. So, as I say, he is on the vocals. We have Joakim Karlsson coming in on pretty much lead guitar. And he is from the band Kraft. So this is his first record with Bloodbath. And then we have 2 of our original members from Bloodbath. We have Anders Nystrom, who most people will also know as a founding member from Catatonia, guitarist from Catatonia. And then we have Jonas Renske, also from Catatonia, vocalist from Catatonia, but for Bloodbath he plays bass. And then on drums we have Martin Axenrot, drummer for Opeth and obviously drummer for Bloodbath. So as I say, a bit of a super group, members from Paradise Lost, Catatonia, and Opeth in there. So yeah, kind of a super group as such. So that makes up this record. So there is a slight change in sound. As I say, we have a blackened sound coming in, which we haven't really heard before from Bloodbath, but it's quite interesting. I quite like it. I'm not massive on black metal. There's some that I don't mind, some that I will listen to, but I'm not hugely into black metal that much. But I like it on this record because it still has that old school death metal sound. As I say, if you like Entombed, if you like Dismember, you will like this record. It has that guitar tone that is similar to those bands. It's a slightly more modern production on this one, as I say, compared to previous records, but it sounds great. Let's go through the tracks. I'll talk a little bit about each track and what I like or what they sound like to me. So Fleischmann kicks off the record, and my word, what a way to kick off this record. It starts with this lo-fi black metal sound to it. There's no way else to describe it really. This just it's not a riff, it's just noise coming from it. It's very, if you listen to your black metal record, you'll know what I mean. It's that very lo-fi sound coming in, but then it just blasts through your speakers and we have this from Nick Holmes, and this old school death metal riffage kicks in, but then it goes back into a very black metal sound. We go into the blast beats, we go into a very sort of cold, eerie guitar sound with the riffs, and then even quite black metal sounding vocals from Nick Holmes as well. You know, it as I say, has a lot of element of black metal throughout this album. There's some tracks where there's none, there's some tracks where it's fully black metal. And this is one of them, bar that sort of opening riff where it is the old school, you know, lovely death metal riffs. Not anything that's like too fast or blast beaty on those, but just a really sort of heavy in your face old school sound. But yeah, a lot of black metal on this one. The second track, Bloodicide, there's no black metal elements to this one. It is pure old school death metal sound. There's quite some nice, intricate drum fills coming in from Axenrot as well. We know he is a very technically gifted drummer from his Opeth stuff and from Bloodbath. You know, he's a really fantastic drummer. Stuff I'm going to listen out to being a drummer. You know, I'm going to pick up on these drum parts and these drum fills. But some really nice stuff. There's probably the grooviest riff on the record comes about halfway through-ish on this track. A really nice groovy sound. There are some quite groovy Bloodbath tracks on previous records. As I say, the groove isn't hugely there on this one, but there is groovy moments. That riff on this track is definitely one of those. And we have some guest vocalists appearing. The best of British appears on this one. We have Jeff Walker from Carcass. We have John Walker from Cancer. And then we have Carl Willits, who a lot of people will know from Bolt Thrower. He is now with Memoriam. But I think, yeah, a lot of people will know him from Bolt Thrower mainly. They don't massively add anything hugely to this track, but I think it's very cool that we have we're celebrating the best of the British extreme music side by having these guys appear, of course with Nick Holmes as well. It's a very cool moment, I think. And yeah, it doesn't change the track all that much. It probably wouldn't miss them too much if they weren't there, but I think it's cool that we do have those guys on it. Wayward Samaritan. This, I think, is more of a death and roll sort of sound, which isn't a bad thing. I don't mind a little bit of death and roll. It's not that kind of brutal, full-on death metal riff. It definitely is more of a death and roll sound to it. It slows down towards the end, and then it has this such a amazing tone of a sound. This palm muted riff, which, as I say, if you like your Entombed and Dismember, you'll like this. But just that palm muted, lovely tone to it. And then we slow down even more after that, and it just sounds brutal. Coming through the speakers, it sounds massive. I'm really loving this record so far. We're only 3 tracks in. It gets even better. Levitator. I really like Nick Holmes on this. I think this is one of his best tracks, if I'm honest. This one. It almost has a little bit of a spit of Akerfeldt to his vocals. When Akerfeldt did his death vocals, the death growls, he had a certain spit to his lyrics. And I feel like Nick Holmes has that. I definitely think this is one of his strongest tracks vocally on this record. Deader. Old school death metal sound to this one. That 90s sound. If you listen to Deicide or old Cannibal Corpse or Morbid Angel is probably a really good one actually to compare to. It has that sound to it, which I love. I really love that sound. It has this solo on towards the back end of a track, which underneath the solo, it sounds like the apocalypse is happening. And the solo adds to that. It sounds like you're listening to the end of a world. And it sounds phenomenal. If the end of a world sounds like that, wow. It's not all that bad. It's a lovely solo though. Really nice solo. Sits on top of it. We flip onto the second side. We have March of the Crucifiers coming up and kicking off second side. It has some nice pinch harmonics in, which is the only time you'll hear these. I quite like hearing pinch harmonics. I like them, sort of the finesse of them. I don't like them overpowering. If you listen to Zach Wilde with Black Label or Ozzy, you'll know what I mean when it's like, especially live, it's like pinch harmonic every 0.4 seconds that he's putting in. But when it's more subtle and the finesse of adding them in, I quite like it. I like the sound of pinch harmonics anyway. Morbid Antichrist follows. Now this again is pretty much pure black metal sound to it. We have sort of some underlying sort of choir-esque vocals, I guess you could call them, or like kind of choir effects. We have a little bit of spoken word in there. We have some blasts. We have some very black metal guitar parts. And yeah, we descend back into that black metal side of this record on this one, which again, I don't mind too much. You know, being not a huge black metal guy, I don't mind it. I like it. I like the diverse sort of, it's not all just old school death metal or Swedish sounding death metal. There is that black side coming in. I quite like it. Warhead Ritual. Quite a groovy riff again. Nice slow chorus on this one. I kind of feel we go into a little bit of death and roll territory again, which again I don't mind massively in if it's done sparingly. And then we have the lyric content on this. It is gore, it is horror. That hasn't deviated away from old Bloodbath. You know, with Nick Holmes coming in, if you were worried it was going to go off into something completely different lyrically, it's not. I mean, you only have to look at the picture of them and then that gatefold picture of them to know that it's probably going to be gore infested and horror infested lyrical content. I wrote a lyric down on my sheets down here, and it reads, "Reek of death and decomposing vomit, Armageddon." If you were worried about them coming away from that gore content, don't worry. With lyrics like that, it is firmly still present in the music. And then to round it off, there's quite a nice short technical solo at the end of this track. There's not huge amounts of solos in this record, but this was quite a nice technical, quite a fast one, rounding off this track. Only the Dead Survive. The penultimate track. This track, in my opinion, should have ended the record. This is huge, this track. It is an absolute masterpiece. I think it should have ended a record. I don't know why it didn't. It is huge. It's very black metal heavy again. Nick Holmes does an incredible vocal on it. There is this amazing, slow, black infused riff towards the end of this track, which I love. And then we go into this really sort of percussion led end to the track with the drums, this percussion almost riffing going along with the drums. It's something like, it sounds like people are gonna march to. And just this whole track is huge, huge, huge track. And I wish it had ended the record, because it would have ended the record on such a high. It just would have left you wanting more, but being completely satisfied at the same time. But the track that did close the record was Chainsaw Lullaby. I think it's one that they put out as one of the lead tracks. I think they did a video for it as well. This one, it kind of has, it reminds me, especially on the chorus, of Dimmu Borgir. It has this, I don't know, I don't think it synthesizes. It kind of has this, again, sort of this choir effect, maybe, which leads off, kind of, leads off each line almost of the vocal on the chorus. But it definitely to me, it sounds quite somewhat Dimmu Borgir-esque sounding. I think it's quite a strong track, but I don't think it's as good as Only the Dead Survive. I think that is the track this record should have ended on. Just maybe switch position around on the tracks. But there we have it. I've talked for quite a long time about this. You can tell when I really get into the records. I did the same with Saxon. I talk forever. I try and keep these videos kind of condensed, but this one is getting on a little bit. So the sound of the record, it sounds huge. It sounds really, really huge. From the moment that riff on Fleischmann comes out after that sort of lo-fi start to it, it just sounds huge. Like, I love it. I really, really love it. As I say, this one came in really good nick. It is brand new. It is deadly silent as well on the record itself. There is no background noise whatsoever. No clicks or pops or or anything. It is deadly, deadly silent, which is great. But I was really impressed with this. I really was. Like, dynamically, it sounds spot on. It's such a good death metal record. Definitely one of the stronger modern ones, I think. There's some really great old school sort of 90s death metal records, but I think this one stands out equally in modern day death metal. I'm really happy with it. So, The Arrow of Satan is drawn by Bloodbath. Definitely go and pick this one up. Now, thank you all for subscribing. Don't forget, go and click on subscribe if you're new to the channel and you like what you see. Go and click anyway, even if you don't like what you see. You don't have to watch them, let's be honest. Go and smash the like button. Go and hit the bell for all notifications. I'll be back once again with more vinyl content along with all the other content going out on the channel. As always, go and buy vinyl. Go and listen to vinyl. This one kicks ass. And I'll see you guys real soon.